Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing all things on how to optimize your recovery. As an athlete, you know how important your rest and recovery is. However, time and time again, I speak to heaps of athletes who are training super hard, yet they wake up every single day feeling groggy, they're constantly sore, and they're not progressing as well as they'd hope to in their training sessions. This ultimately comes down to how you rest and recover. So we're going to dive into why recovery is important, the biggest mistakes I see athletes making, and how you can fix it. But before we get into it, please don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you don't want to miss the part 2 of this video. So let's break down why your poor recovery is ultimately affecting your athletic potential. When we train, we have an increase in the stress response, which is very normal. However, if we don't manage this stress, it then leads to a decline in performance. And this is because our glycogen or our carbohydrate levels drop, we don't replenish them correctly, and our nervous system stays in fight or flight response, so we don't get the adequate rest that we need to recover. Then over time, as inflammation increases, our muscle repair is also compromised. We then experience fatigue, muscle soreness, ongoing muscle soreness. So not just like 1 day or 2 days, we're talking a week of sore muscles, which can then increase our injury risk and also affect our ability to adapt to our training volumes and load and see long-term progression. So every time you train, your body goes through a stress response. Inflammation increases, which is completely normal, but it's the way that you manage this stress outside of training that affects your ability to recover well, reduce chances of plateaus or low progress or fatigue and low energy in your next training sessions coming up. So there are 4 pillars that you need to be aware of and need to prioritize during this recovery period so that you make sure that you're bouncing back well. The first one is muscle repair and adaptations, because this is actually what happens outside of training. We tend to think that all of the building of your muscle, your adaptations to training happens in your sessions, but it actually doesn't. Your training provides a signal to your body to build muscle and repair and adapt to your training, but it's actually in your recovery. This rebuilding process happens. The next thing is glycogen replenishment, which is your carbohydrates. If you are not finishing your training session and replenishing your carbohydrate stores, so eating rice, pasta, bread, etc., your stores always end up depleted, and then your energy levels in your next training sessions are always low. So we need to make sure that we have sufficient glycogen replenishment. And next is your nervous system regulation. So cortisol increases when we're training. Your fight or flight response, which I'm sure you're aware of, is what is initiated in your training session. Your adrenaline spikes, your blood flow is directed to your muscles so that you can perform at your best. But if we stay in this state of stress outside of training, you don't recover well, absorb your nutrients for your food, because essentially when you're in fight or flight, your blood flow is directed away from your stomach. Therefore, your digestion isn't really turned on. But we need to make sure that you do regulate your nervous system. You go through, it could be yoga, it could be meditation, breath work, any sort of practice that helps to regulate your nervous system so that you feel a lot less stressed and your rest and digest system turns on so you can absorb your nutrients well and recover. And then lastly, probably one of the biggest and most important ones is your sleep quality and the amount of sleep that you're getting. Time and time again, I see so many athletes getting less than 7 hours of sleep a day. I know that sometimes you can't control that, but making sure that you're at least on average getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep across the week every single night, because this is where your growth hormone is actually released in your sleep. And it's also where your brain repairs and your neurological regulation and your neurological repair happens. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough sleep and we're getting good quality as well. So managing your sleep environment and making sure that you are winding down properly, you're not having any sort of stimulation or adrenaline spikes close to bed, so that you're optimizing your sleep. These are 3 ways that you can track your recovery. It's really helpful to use a mixture of objective and subjective measurements so that you have specific numbers and ways through your HRV and RHR that is numerical and shows true data as to how well you're recovering, versus more subjective measurements where it's your training readiness, so assessing your soreness levels, your energy levels, how you're feeling, your mood on a day-to-day basis. This is more objective and feeling based. So the combination of both will give you a better understanding as to how you are managing your training load and your stress overall. So your heart rate variability is the time frame between your heart rate beats. When you assess this, which you can do through an Oura Ring, Whoop Band, I believe Garmin also has that function, and the most expensive Apple Watch also has the ability to track your heart rate variability. So when your heart rate variability is low, this indicates that you are in a stressed state. It means that your time between each heartbeat is quite short, requiring your heart to beat at a much faster rate, indicating a higher level of stress. And then when it is higher, you have a wider, larger time frame between each beat, and you are more ready to perform. Your resting heart rate can be a really good indication when your heart rate is high, your resting heart rate is high. It can be a really good indication that you're not recovering well. So particularly when your morning heart rate is consistently elevated in comparison to your baseline, or if you have a consistent increase in your heart rate, your resting heart rate over days as well. So your training readiness is another way that you can track your progress, and you can do this through just a training journal. That's how I track my readiness for training. I track my training volume, my soreness levels, and my energy levels. You can go even more in depth here and also track your hydration levels, your weight in the morning, the hours of your sleep and how well you slept from a quality perspective, and your overall nutrition. These metrics can help indicate to you what needs to change in order to improve your recovery. If your training volume increases, your sleep decreases, and your soreness increases, then that's a good indication that, okay, let's tweak the sleep, let's increase that a little bit, and let's see if my overall energy and soreness levels also improve. You can then use those variables to help adjust things to improve your recovery. So we've discussed why recovery is important, what happens within the body, and also a few different ways on how you can track your recovery. So in part 2 of this video, I'm going to go through the steps of exactly how to improve your recovery. So all of your nutrition protocols that you need to be aware of, as well as things outside of nutrition that you can start using, like cold water, plunges, saunas, all of these other things that will help your recovery over time. So stay tuned, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the second part of this video. I'll see you then, bye.